CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. We've got a great episode today for you, as not only is Justin here, but we also have Jim from Fantasy for the Ages back with us here again.
What's up, everybody?
It's good to have you back here. I've kind of hopped onto your channel a few times here recently, so it's only right and only fair that you come back this way, where you don't have to do anything, you just show up.
I appreciate that. It's always fun to have you over on the channel. But yeah, this is a hoot. And such a good chapter you've invited me for. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm glad to hear it. Well, maybe it was more so last chapter, but I didn't really care for it until I reread it. But this one I liked quite a bit right away. And then even, Justin texted me. He read like part of it and he's like, I don't know what's going on, or I don't remember exactly what you said. But and then he explained to me that he was tired, and that was probably part of it. And then when he actually got to reread it, he's like, yeah, just the fact that I was tired, things weren't making sense or whatever. So
yeah,
it all came together for him.
I just, for whatever reason, remember just not being able to focus on what was happening. I'm just going to put this down because I'm getting frustrated. And then I think I went to bed like a half hour later. And then when I tried again the next day, it was like, oh, okay, this makes much more sense.
Part of what's a treat for me to join you with this chapter is, last time I was with you, I was still working my way through Malazan, Book of the Fallen. I was just further than you guys. But now that's all in the rearview mirror. And I've finished all of Ian C. Esselmont's novels of the Malazan Empire. And I've finished the first book of the Carcanis trilogy. I've got a lot of context now. And it changes how you look at these things. So this is fun.
Wow.
Your encyclopedia then for this episode.
Oh, I don't know about that. But I'll be biting my tongue or lip or a lot here, I think.
Okay, so pay close attention to body language. All right.
When I start twitching, that might mean something. Yeah.
Gotcha. So do you plan on rereading it once you're done with Carcanis and the Witness trilogy?
I don't think so. I'm going to continue to spend time in it, but to reread the whole thing, it's just such a commitment. And I've got so much else I still want to read.
That's fair.
That it would be tough for me to give it that time. But, diving in for something like this, coming back from time to time will always be enjoyable. And I'll always pick up more.
Well, maybe that's where you could do like the audiobooks or something. Try that. I know you do a lot of audiobooks, and I'd be curious how different that experience is versus, whether you're reading it digitally or holding an actual book. But
yeah, I read the 10 books digitally, but everything since then in Malazan, I've done audio now. Because It's like I couldn't do this stuff originally in audio. There's just too much to follow, too much to hang on to. But with all 10 books now in my brain, I'm able to follow these other books on audio. There's enough context that I have that I can keep up. And yes, if I redid these, I'd totally go audiobook this time.
Very cool.
Well, you want to take the patrons here, buddy?
Yeah, absolutely. I love taking the patrons. They're my favorite. But in order of subscription, we've got Jan the Picker, Luciana Etrigan, Ryan the Topological, Damien the Rock of Faces, Nate Fiddle Me This, Shield Anvil Dylan, Calvin He Who Witnessed, Livia the Malazan Potato, Aaron Mott Irregular, Scott the Only, Graceless Passion, Dead Smell, and our Gestriant. Man, I remember when we were so freaking confused on what the hell Rock of the Faces was.
All those names are great. Yeah, you're getting more context.
Yeah, hopefully they don't turn into dog killers.
Well, as a side note, next chapter, we will have Damien joining us. So that'll be exciting to actually get to talk to him. Me and him text every now and again, but he has told me that chapter 9 in House of Chains, if it's not his favorite in the series, it's at least his favorite in this book. But I sorry, Damien, if I'm putting words in your mouth here. I think it's your favorite in the series. So I'm excited to read this next chapter to see what's going on.
I know that ever since you told me that his chapter, or that chapter 9 was his favorite, I've been like, okay, we're almost there. We're close. I get to read it. Because, it's like that anticipatory, like somebody really, if they're going to say, like, it was my favorite chapter, it gives you something to look forward to. Not that, like, this other stuff was bad by any means, but, you get your sights set on a prize.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know when I'm going to get to dive into it because, like, tomorrow night I'm going to a hockey game. Saturday we got a work party, and so I don't know. Probably not going to be till Sunday at the earliest.
You're a busy man.
Got a life. Good on you.
I'm trying to juggle it all.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, since you're here, would you like to take the epigraph?
It would be my pleasure.
Awesome. We'll make use of you.
Among the untried recruits of the 14th Army, fully half originated from the continent of Quantali, the very center of the empire. Young and idealistic, they stepped onto blood-soaked ground in the wake of the sacrifices made by their fathers and mothers, grandfathers and grandmothers. It is the horror of war that, with each newly arrived generation, the nightmare is reprised by innocence. The Shaikh Rebellion, Illusion of Victory, Imogen Telebant.
Appreciate your dramatic reading there, Jim.
It's what I do. Gotta have some fun.
If anything, we should just have Jim read the epigraph every episode.
Just farm that work out to him.
I'd do it, man. That would be fun.
You said you wanted to go in and out, so great way to come in, do your thing, and off you go.
Well, I suppose it'd take you all of about 30 seconds to record it and just email it to Justin or whatever. Maybe we'll have to consider that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, maybe.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
All right.
It would be my pleasure.
It would be weird not reading it ourselves at the beginning of a chapter and just having it inserted, but whatever.
Right.
We can get past that.
All right. Well, first section here in House of Chains, chapter 8. Adjunct Tavor stood alone in front of 4,000 rustling soldiers. Officers screamed and bellowed at them to straighten up. Gamut stood several paces behind the adjunct. He thought to himself that no commander could be more alone than she was now. Worst of all, it was his legion that was first to assemble. He had tears in his eyes as he realized that she had taken the humiliation upon herself and spared him the shame of being unable to get his troops in line. Aaron's parade grounds that had the ability to hold many soldiers in ranks. The 14th Army was assembled in passes of threes, starting with Gamut's 8th for Tavor's inspection. Gamut's 8th had arrived disorderly, every lesson from their drill sergeant lost. Gamut saw Captain Kaneb battering soldiers with the flat of his blade, attempting to get them in line. 15 paces behind Gamut were the other two fists, as well as the Wiccans. Admiral Nock wasn't there, as his fleet had already sailed. Gamut was at war with himself between wanting to be somewhere else and taking the adjunct with him and saving her from this torment and wanting to step forward to be by her side. Someone did come up alongside him, though. He was carrying a heavy leather sack that he had thumped down. The man's pitted face stared at the restless mob. Gamut swung around to see a dozen men and women standing near each other. He asked the man who was he supposed to be. The man replied, apologizing for his tardiness. Gamut asked from which squad and what companies. The man replied that they were from here and there, and asked Gamut if he wanted these children, referring to the soldiers, to quiet themselves and calm down. Gamut said that if he could manage that, he would give him his own command. The man said that he wouldn't want it, as he killed Lanestro, snapped his neck with 2 hands. The sergeant had made his way clear of the soldiers and was making his way towards Tavor. and he reached her, and words were exchanged. At that point, Gamut had made up his mind and told the man to follow him. The man grabbed his bag off the ground and followed Gamut to Tavor's side. As they neared the adjutant and the sergeant, the man at his side grunted, and then the man and the sergeant next to Tavor made eye contact and then made a series of hand gestures to each other. As Gamut came up to Tavor, he was about to say something before Tavor gestured him to stop so she could speak, but didn't even get the chance as the soldier at Gamut's side told his sergeant to draw a line in the sand. The sergeant turned and headed back towards the ranks of soldiers. Tavor snapped her gaze back to the soldier, but said nothing as he was rummaging in his bag. The sergeant was 5 paces in front of the line of soldiers, his sword out. He drew a line in the sand. The soldier rummaging through his bag looked up and told that both of them should get away and go join the Wiccans. He tells them when he gives the signal to cover their ears. Gamut flinched as he saw what was being pulled from the man's bag. He thought to himself that this bag had been thumped down next to him not moments ago. Tavor asked for the soldier's name. The man replies and says that his name was Cuddle. Gamut reached out to pull Tavor back, telling her what he saw in Cuddle's bag. Tavor told Gamut that she knew what the items were, and this man was about to kill 50 of her soldiers. Cuddle responded by saying she didn't have any, and then pulled out a shovel and began digging. He tells her to pull them all back and leave the rest up to him. Gamut spoke her name, unable to avoid sounding as if he was pleading with her. Tavor faced Gamut and told him that they should leave. She shot him a glance and told him that they best be on their way. He let her take the lead, but glanced back to see that the sergeant had rejoined Cuddle and had managed to dig a small hole. The pair are heard having a conversation about munitions, to the point where Cuddle was so happy at String's supply that he owed the sergeant a kiss. Gamut looked away, and inside his head, he said one word, and that was sappers.
Sappers.
They are crazy.
So this is the part where, like, I remember reading it, and I'm like, "What the fuck is going on?" It's just a very unusual way to say I'm digging a hole so I can get these miling and milling soldiers' attention. I didn't catch that at first. I'm like, "What is going on?" So
yeah, they couldn't form ranks and simple task, or should be.
You'd think. I mean, never been in the military, so I guess I can't speak to that.
Have you ever tried to get a random crowd to stand in straight rows?
I'm too socially awkward for this.
It's not so simple, actually.
No,
yeah.
I wouldn't even try. Way too socially awkward.
I could see myself maybe trying, but I'm sure it wouldn't go well.
You'd give up.
Well, definitely. I'd be like, you guys are idiots. I'm done with this.
I guess my first thought, just this thought that Gamut has about Tavor kind of being more alone than she was now. And I could have sworn in one of the previous chapters, I don't remember who, but someone said that Tavor was a monster when faced alone, as if she could accomplish anything. And while most would see being alone as like a weakness, I feel like the perception that people have of Tavor is that she like thrives on this shit. But maybe I'm remembering something differently. Like I could have swore at one point, I think it was Gamut said that in one of the previous chapters.
I think you're right, there's that perception that she is good under pressure, but everything we hear is that there's not really a track record there either, though.
Right. There's nothing credible. There's no credible sources, right? I'm interested to see where this actually goes with Tavor. Is this like one of those Whiskey Jack Knees things where like there's so many like call outs about her track record, about how cold she is, that it actually is the reason for her demise? You know what I mean? I'm gonna call that the knee theory.
I mean, you could be right, but I just think about look at what Ganoz went through. He gets stabbed in the first few chapters and literally dies. And And then you look at the crap that Fellison went through. Like, both these other siblings have gone through pretty terrible things. And
maybe in their DNA.
just to be unlucky, I guess. So is she going to be the one that lucks out and kind of is high and dry? I think you're probably right. I don't know. I think I'll get into it later. I know I've kind of got a talking point on it in one of my sections, but
well, we'll put a pin in it. Not to bring that, doesn't have to come back. This thought that gamut, right? Like the shame and the embarrassment that he's feeling, because his legion is the first step, and it's clear that they've had some formal training, as it states that like the milling soldiers had totally forgot all of the drill sergeant's orders, right? It's just, I imagine the pressure of having to get his recruits in line was tremendous. But I also kind of feel like some of these pressures, he's putting a lot on himself. But
no, I don't think he's putting it on himself, really. I mean, just think like if you're the general of the army and you've got the president coming to inspect your troops and they're just, group of like a bunch of dumbasses, in a circle, like you're going to be embarrassed and you'll be like, oh my God, like this is so bad right now. Like I'm never going to recover from this.
I mean, put some context on this too, though. Gamut, before he became this commander level, he was retired, just working for House Devore. So what's the perception that he's probably functioning under? He's got the position because he was friends with the boss.
Well, that's true too.
And now his people can't even line up.
Right. Yeah. I didn't even think of that. You're both right. Absolutely 100% right. But from like the reader's perspective, our perspective, I guess I can't speak for either of you, but like to me, I still have this feeling that like this is not Tavor's goal. She is apathetic to this whole military ensemble. Her goal is to recover Felizin. And my guess is that this is just one of those things where, you have to go to work, right? Like you got to get up, you got to go to work, but you're not passionate about anything that you're doing. That's the sense that I get from Tavor, taking that into consideration, but also like the fact that, Gamut probably is not privy to that. Yeah, I guess that's just kind of what I was thinking as I was going for it. And thus the reason where I'm like, he's putting it on himself though, but I guess tit for tat, I guess.
I mean, you always want to look good for your boss, right?
Right.
I had a thought here, Justin, that maybe before you jump into your next one, I'll just grab it. But I don't think you summarized it, but there was a description of like a dust cloud that enveloped Tavor. And when I read that, I was like, this feels like a Justin detail. Like something that I thought for sure you would like make note of. But it seemed like it was like a little mini whirlwind covering her up, briefly even, but I wonder if maybe it's some foreshadowing or something.
It could be. I mean, I guess when I think of whirlwind, I think of like a hurricane, but with just sand. When I read this, it almost felt like just a sheet of rain, like was limiting like visibility is kind of what I imagined. Instead of it being like a spinning thing, I just thought it was like a sheet of sand that just.
I guess I don't remember exactly how it was worded. It almost felt like it was just like a dust devil just like around her to me, but maybe it wasn't.
Gotcha. I don't know. I mean, it's what the first line of the Adjunct Tavor stood alone in front of 4,000 jostling soldiers.
I don't know if it was.
Oh yeah. A pernicious. Yeah, I don't even know how I'm saying that. A pernicious wind was sweeping the dust cloud directly towards the adjunct. And then in moments she was engulfed. So yeah, probably. I don't know exactly what the meaning of pernicious is off the top of my head.
I'm not sure either. It's a big word.
Pernicious.
Having a harmful effect, especially in a gradual or subtle way. So yeah, probably. You probably right.
We'll see.
Yeah. Linestro. Do you remember Linestro, Derek? And even Jim?
Honestly, I don't.
So I don't either. I mean, I feel like I remember the name, but I don't remember his death. And like I'm almost kind of wondering if his death happened off screen, which because I don't remember Cuddle either. And I know that he explains that like he was on the ship, the Salanda, after the Battle of the Vathar. He missed the end of everything that happened in Aaron and Deadhouse Gates.
Maybe we didn't get him by name, Cuddle, anyways. I don't.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't, and I think I mentioned that later on, but I don't remember Cuddle. I remember Linestro. He was one of the nobles in the chain of dogs.
He was their main mouthpiece. I looked it up.
Okay.
Yeah. He's the one who spoke on behalf of them more often than not.
Gotcha. But I don't remember him dying. I don't remember his death. I remember Duiker like crushing Nethpara's throat at the end of Deadhouse Gates, but I don't remember this Cuddle and Estro thing.
Well, it happened off. It did happen off.
It did off. Okay.
Yeah, he survives Deadhouse Gates.
Good
So
catch, Justin.
this
Good call.
is actually where we discover Linestro's dead and that Cuddle did it.
Gotcha. I don't
this.
know if it's better to have it on page or off. I mean, I guess it would have been cool to visualize how it happened. Yeah, I don't know. I guess, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
Doesn't seem like there's a lot of remorse there from Cuddle. So.
Oh no.
No.
He was meting out some justice.
Yes. Which I made a point in one of the earlier chapters when we were talking about the nobility and the talons. I think it was chapter 5 when we get that like flashback of Gamut and it at House Paran the night of Felazan's capture, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And the nobility going against the orders of the Malazan, and that's 100% what you got in the Chain of Dogs is the nobility just questioning everything. So I think that I just thought it was a cool theme that like applied to a book I had already read.
Coming full circle.
Yeah. The comment about the sappers, just this I chuckled as you did too, Jim, with the bag full of Moranth, not musicians, munitions. It's still gonna when I go back and listen to this, it's still gonna sound like musicians. I don't know what it is about munitions that makes it sound, but whatever. But yeah, anyway, when they're dropping the bag full of explosives, just the thought that Gamut was like, holy fuck, that was like right next to me.
Yeah, it's basically a grenade waiting to go off.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to toss. It says something about it, though, that the sappers are pretty darn comfortable with munitions. And I don't know if you guys know much about real world munitions, but an awful lot of the time, until they're actually prepped and used, they are perfectly safe. So it perhaps suggests most of the other people have no idea what the sappers are really working with.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
I do not have any experience with a grenade, but if I came across one, I would be pretty cautious.
It's kind of like a lot of people fear that they're going to blow up their computer, but in actuality, there's really not much that you can do to a computer that would like destroy it. I mean, we're just talking about using it. Like people have this like weird fascination that they're going to like bork their computer by using it. And I'm like, I mean, you could try, but like there's always a way to undo it.
Now, if you click that email from the person wanting to sell you a bridge in Nigeria, yeah, well, you borked your computer.
Right. Yes.
Probably your rest of your life too.
There's a way to come back from it. And it usually involves erasing everything.
Yes.
Anyway, my last comment, strings. I know it's Fiddler, but I just, for whatever reason, they're not the same in my head. Like Fiddler is not strings yet in my head. So like every time I hear strings, I'm like, wait, who is this? And then I'm like, oh, it's Fiddler.
I think that's what he's going for. So it's working.
Fuck.
Justin, maybe you could be Fiddler. You get the beard.
And I believe he's a redhead too. So I think he's got a red beard.
There you go. Halloween costume.
I'm okay.
How's your cards?
How's my cards?
Mm-hmm.
I play a game that nobody knows how to play, so probably
Oh,
not.
that sounds like Fiddler too,
Yeah.
actually, then.
Yeah,
Oh,
perfect.
interesting.
Well-
Maybe I'll be Fiddler, but I like Jarza. I like Jarza Orlong.
That's all you got here, Justin, for this section?
That's literally all I had. I mean, now when I came back to it, not being tired, it was nice to be able to cinematically understand what was taking place. So I get it. I understand. It makes sense.
All right. Well, fellas ready to move on?
Let's do it.
Yep.
All right. Short one here. An explosion rocked the immediate area. Rubble rained down. A third of the Legion was blown off their feet as they knocked down others around them. Though there were amazingly no fatalities. Tavor and Gamut moved forward, facing the silenced Legion. Cuttle stood with a sharper in his hand, held high as he yelled, "Next soldier who moves gets this at his feet. And if you think my aim ain't any good, try me." He directed the sergeants and corporals up and to find their squads, and Sergeant Strings would be redrawing the line since it was messed up. And they would line up on it nice and orderly, otherwise people would die. Officers were now shouting, though not as loud as before, and the ranks of the Legion began to slowly take shape. Tavor was back at her original spot, with the crater to her right, watching and waiting the madman with a sharper. Gamut talked to Cuttle, asking if he had really killed a nobleman. Cuttle said he did. Gamut asked if the noble was on the chain of dogs. Cuttle said he was. Gamut said he, or Cuttle, was as well. Cuttle said he was, until he was stabbed in the shoulder with a spear, and he ended up on the Solanda, so he missed the final argument. Lanestro was second best as he wanted Pulik Alar, but he had run off with Malik Rel. They might have thought the argument was over, but he did not. Gamut said he would like to give him a squad to command. Cuttle said no thanks, as he was already in Sergeant String's unit, and that suited him just fine. Gamut asked where he knew him from. Cuttle said he had never met the man before today, but he had to go. He owed him a kiss. Don't really have much here other than the sappers, sure, we kind of talked about it before, but they are crazy. Just blowing a hole in the ground, ready to chuck a grenade at somebody else's feet if things aren't going their way.
I want to highlight something you said in that first paragraph that you wrote. Though there were amazingly no fatalities. No, there was precisely no fatalities. That's the thing. These sappers know their stuff. So he knew just how far the blast range would be. He put it where it needed to be, and it served its purpose. Got everybody's attention. And now he can threaten to blow anybody else up. He's not really going to do it, but they don't know that because sappers are crazy. They lean into that reputation really marvelously. I think we see that on display here.
And his aim doesn't have to be that good with this thing because it's got a blast radius, so he's just got to be in the general area.
Why do you think he owes Strings a kiss?
Oh, didn't they? Was it the last chapter, Justin? They're talking about it, I thought.
In the last chapter?
Or was it in this just last section?
Yeah, it's because Strings has a whole arsenal of munitions.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep, they pass some words together, and yeah, he's got to kiss him now. We have toys. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The only thing is like that caught me off guard is this like Cuttle admitting or saying that he's never met Strings before today. But based on something that happens a little bit later, I feel like he actually does know Strings or Fiddler.
Well, maybe he knows Fiddler, but he just met Strings.
Ooh, God damn it. Very, very, very clever. All right. I'll take it.
I'll buy that.
Yeah.
That's a good take. I like that.
That is a good answer. Those damn clever sappers.
I love the sappers.
Yeah, I was surprised that they weren't. I mean, I think that this chapter is really accentuating the sappers, which you do get a lot of in Dead House Gates, but like Memories of Ice, you don't really get that same feeling. Like the sappers are obviously in Memories of Ice, but they're not like, I don't know. They don't seem to be as as full of antics as these guys are, if that makes any sense.
I think we see more like the Marines and stuff there. I mean, it's obviously different fighting style and everything. So yeah, there's probably not so much time for antics, as you said.
Yeah. Oh well. We already move on to the next section.
Let's do it.
All right. Less than 15 minutes later, Gamut's 8th Legion stood motionless in tight, even ranks. Head aside, Tabor studied the ranks from where she stood. She seemed to have come to some type of decision, gesturing to bring the other fists to her side. She asked Blistig and Beralta how their respective troops were doing. They both admitted that after the blast, their troops have calmed down. Tabor gives instructions on how the next legion will assemble after the 8th have left. She asks Gamut if he is satisfied with his legion, and he said that it was good enough. Tabor started to agree and then noticed that the attention of the 3 fists standing in front of her were looking at something behind her. Of the 4,000 soldiers standing at attention, there was complete and utter silence, as if the 8th had drawn a single breath and held it. Gamut struggled to maintain his expression. Even as Tabor raised an eyebrow at him, she slowly turned around to see what the fuss was about. A toddler had come from nowhere, unseen by anyone, until he managed to arrive at the spot the adjutant had initially stood. He was wearing an oversized talaba. The child stood facing the ranks of the soldiers. A cough was heard, and then someone stepped forward. Even as the man emerged from the front line, the toddler's eyes found him. Both tiny arms reached out, and one of the sleeves fell back along the arm, revealing the child holding a human thigh bone. The man froze mid-step. All the soldiers in the ranks gasped as one. Gamut forced down a shiver and addressed Captain Keneb to collect the child, before it started to scream. Keneb, embarrassed, saluted and went to gather up the child. Tavor snapped for Gamut to follow as she approached the man and child. Keneb offers an explanation and that the child seems determined to slip through the nurse's grasp at every opportunity. Tavor demanded to know if the child was his. Keneb said that he basically was, as he was an orphan from the chain of dogs, and the historian Duaker had placed the child into his care. Tavor asked if he had a name. Keneb replied that the little fellow's name was Grub. She tells him to deliver the child to the hired nurse, and then tomorrow, fire her, and hire 3 more that were better. She asked if the child would accompany the army. Keneb replied that he had no one, and there would be families among the camp followers. Tabor interrupted him, so that she was aware of that, and said that she was aware of that, and then dismissed him. Keneb attempted to apologize, but Tabor was already turning away, and only Gamut heard her murmur that it was too late for that. She was right, as new recruits even recognized a bad omen when it arrived. A child in the very boot prints of the woman leading this army, raising high a human thigh bone.
Dun, dun, dun.
My first thought here is, as you would expect from Fiddler, kind of got to give it up for him to know how to remedy the situation. And that is his years of bridge burner experience coming into play. So I just thought that was really cool. I mean, I see Fiddler as a clever kind of fella.
You mean strings?
Shut up.
And the lesson here is very well appreciated by most men. If all else fails, blow crap up.
Yep. It'll get your attention.
It should.
I mean, think about it, right? It's like when you're in a noisy room and something falls off a shelf and makes a loud bang, like everybody is quiet.
Turns and looks.
Turns and looks, So, I mean, it works.
I was an educator for years. You want to get the kids' attention? They all stop and clap, just like you did. Bam. It works.
That makes sense now. I can totally see you as like a teacher. Okay. All right. Connecting dots.
Nah.
I think it's just because I'm surrounded by teachers all day. So I see it.
I'll take it.
All right. So Gamut struggled to maintain his expression, even as Tavor raised an eyebrow at him. And I don't know why this made me chuckle. It's just kind of like one, being a visual person, seeing the utter confusion on Tavor's face as she realizes that no one's really paying attention to her. You know, like, what the fuck, y'all? Like, what are you doing? You know? So it's just her body language just made me chuckle. And then Kaneb, as he's like making his way out of the ranks, he's like, fuck. You know what I mean?
Oh, crap. Yeah.
The thigh bone is revealed and he just stops in his tracks. And then everybody behind him just like, you know, gasps as one. And, you know, like these were the details that I missed because I was so fucking tired. It was just weird because like you go from like this complete and utter 100% understanding, and then you go back to like, what happened? Why is everyone doing that? You know what I mean? So it's just, it's a very important lesson that like you kind of have to be in a little bit of a good headspace to read some of these sections or even these books. Really,
it's something I've come to really see for truth. Erickson doesn't waste a single word. So every one of these little things has meaning, and you got to be on your game when you're reading them. Yeah.
I just thought it was a really cool visual.
Yeah.
You know, you got these ranks of these soldiers, and this little kid just trots out, you know, and he's got like basically a giant pajama shirt on, is what I'm imagining, you know. And then he raises his hand, and then you see this thigh bone, and I mean, everybody kind of like freaks out silently, and I didn't really, you know, until we get into the next section, you know, you don't really know, like, well, okay, well, why is this a bad thing? But
yeah,
I didn't have any ideas at that point, but I'm like, okay, just this visual I really like.
Well, and it's funny because, like, you know, in my mind, when you see this toddler coming out, Kaneb, like the toddler calls him Neb, you know, and like it just reminds me of like when my kids were first starting to talk, just that like cute little like
it's perfectly natural.
Yeah, you know, but like everybody's reacting like, fuck, we're all gonna die. You know, like it's not this cute kid who's like instantly recognized Kaneb and they're like running towards each other. You know what I mean? Like it's not that at all. It's
I mean it kind of was until it wasn't.
Exactly.
Suddenly.
Yeah. I won't forget that part. Just everyone breathing at the same time, but then you have this innocence of this small child. But to everyone else, it's not innocent. It's like death and destruction, you know? And so it was just it's cool.
Yeah.
The kid, the toddler, I feel like I recall some of that from Dead House Gates, but at the same time, I don't really. I mean, I don't think it's like that important if you do or don't remember, because like, here's your reminder right here, you know, like you don't necessarily need to remember that handoff, so to speak, because this fills in the blanks.
I kind of remember it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm assuming it happened towards the end before Duiker, I think, goes back out.
I don't remember if it was that last sprint to Aaron where it kind of happened because everybody was just getting left behind, or if it was before that, but
yeah, I don't quite remember. Those details get a little fuzzy, but I feel like it you know, it's not necessarily anything that like you need to hold on to or you need to remember.
Yeah, I don't think he was really highlighted in Dead House Gates at all. There were orphans, we know that. There, you know, and so he was one of them, I think is the deal.
Yeah.
Now he's highlighted.
Yes. One of my last, or my second to last thought here is just Tavor kind of already turning away as Kaneb is attempting to apologize. And it was only Gamut. Oh my God. Gamut. There we
Names.
go. Combining two names into one new one. Gamut was the only one who heard her say that, oh, yeah, well, it's too late. Now she recognizes that there's a fucking omen right there. Standing totally right there.
Screwed it up already now, and there's no takebacks. Crap.
I know it's supposed to read as cold, or lizard eyes. And it does. Don't get me wrong. I guess the way that I see it is it wasn't meant to be personal towards Kaneb. It's just, fuck, there's the omen.
And now you
As
got to
her
do something
army is
about it.
spooked, right? She recognizes her army is spooked.
Mm-hmm. Group dynamics, fragile thing, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it'll spread through the other parts of the Legion. Just wildfire. It'll just go.
We're cursed.
And maybe Derek, you can maybe answer this question. I understand that it's a bad omen. I get that. I get the reason why the circumstance equals a bad omen, and I get that it's a little explained a little bit later on. But how exactly did it become an omen?
It's just what's being represented in front of them.
That's it.
That's how I took it. You got this young kid, toddler, and how old is why can't I think Tavor? How old is Tavor? She's like early 20s.
Yeah,
late 20s, maybe. Yeah.
So to a lot of these soldiers, she's probably still a kid, right? And she's leading them to battle, and she doesn't have experience. And then this kid's got a bone. She's holding all their bones in her hand. She's holding their corpses in her hand, basically, is kind of what I thought, what I picked up on. Gotcha.
I'll take it. I like it better than what I had.
I don't know if I'm right. That's just kind of what made sense to me. Just like reading this, like, oh, this is just the inexperience and a bone. I don't know, maybe, if they're going to feel like bones are just a bad deal all the way around. If the kid was just there and maybe if he had a sword, they'd be like, oh, sweet, she's going to lead us to, victory, unquestioned victory. I don't know.
Yeah. Gotcha. I guess the way I thought about it in my mind was that, like, there was a situation that happened prior to this involving a child and a thigh bone, right? And now it has been come to known that is a bad omen. Like, it had to pre-exist to be an omen is kind of how I had it in my mind, but I like yours better.
There's a thigh bone, so yeah, she's marching them to their deaths, I guess, was kind of the other thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you think like soldiers, like they're going to look for signs in probably anything,
Right. Yeah. Depending upon, if your shit falls to the left or the right, it could be a good or bad thing. Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be a bad day.
But yeah, that's all I had for that section. Again, everything is just kind of like one continuous thing after another. So again, I loved how cinematically I see everything in my head as it goes.
It definitely feels kind of like I guess, I'm not really sure the term I want, like a landmark scene. Like it's memorable.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's a big battle, but it's one that'll probably stick in my head from this book, I think.
Well, I think it's important to kind of, make the reader kind of understand that, like, there's some struggles here. It's not good. It's not kosher. These are new recruits, right? Like, and you almost have to know that because, like, what they're going up against seems a little bit more serious than how they are failing to rank up. It's pretty monumental that, like, they get their shit together and as soon as possible because I don't have time to waste.
Yeah, no, they don't.
Yeah.
All right, ready here? Hood's balls skewered on a spit. The curse was uttered in a tone of disgust. Strings watched Cuddle put his belongings down and said they needed to go outside. He would find Gessler and Borduke as well. Cuddle said he would rather get drunk. Strings said they would do that later. They needed to have a small meeting now. Cuddle told Strings to lead on. Stormy was with a group of soldiers in the courtyard. Lieutenant Renal had took off once the soldiers had arrived. All their eyes were on Strings. He knew they were concerned about the omen. Strings thought to himself, a child leads us to our deaths. A leg bone to signify our march, withered under the curse of the desert sun. We've all lived too long, seen too much, to deceive ourselves of this one brutal truth. This army of recruits now see themselves as already dead. Stormy spoke up, saying if he thought they had a chance in hell of winning this fight, he'd lost his mind. Strings cut in saying he knew, and they weren't stupid, but what he wants to know is, but what he wants now, is a chance for him and him alone to talk. He'd let them know when he was done talking. Borduk spat on the ground, saying he was a hood-damn bridge burner. Strings corrected him, saying was, and asked if there was a problem with that. The unit bought in and agreed to listen to his story. It had to do with Nock, before he was an admiral, just the commander of 6 ships. Strings would have been surprised if anyone already knew this story, but if they did, to keep quiet about it. They were on the way to meet the Kartul fleet, 3 pirate ships blessed by the island's priests of Drek, the Worm of Autumn. That second name was for emphasis. Nock's ships had stopped at the Napan Isles, went up the mouth of the Kulibor River to drag and refill water barrels. All ships did this on their way to Kartul or going beyond the reach. Half a day out from the Napan Isles, the first water barrel was opened and a Peralt snake came out and bit the boy in the eye. The boy took 2 steps before he was dead. The snake was also killed, but it was too late. Nock was young and shrugged off the incident, but soon Marines and sailors started dying of thirst, too afraid to open another barrel. So Nock did the obvious thing and opened one himself, spilling snakes all over the deck, and somehow he wasn't bitten or killed. Every barrel on all the ships was full of snakes. So they never fought the Kartulians. By the time they made it back to the Napan Isles, half of the sailors were dead. The ships were filled with offerings to the Worm of Autumn and sank in the deep. Nock had to wait another year to fight Kartul's fleet. 2 months after that, the island was conquered. He was silent for a few moments, then said he was not yet done talking. This was a story of how to do things wrong. You don't get rid of an omen by fighting it. You have to swallow it whole. Everyone looked confused. String said they needed to get a hand on this omen. If they didn't, they were all as good as dead. Didn't he hear the captain say there was a cemetery nearby blown over? He suggested they go find it. And now he was done talking.
Strings is one smart dude.
I think that was an interesting section. It made me think of, like an omen, or I don't know, what's another, like a, destiny. It's kind of what you make of it.
Like fate takes you so far, the rest you do yourself.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But I know it's something I feel like I've talked about before, Justin. But this idea that the recruits, they see themselves as dead already. And obviously, I haven't been in the military either, so I don't have firsthand experience. But I know I've seen it in, military movies. I feel like it was a thing in Saving Private Ryan, maybe. But, these soldiers, once they accept the fact that they're dead, they fight better, right? Because they're not afraid to die. They lose that fear of dying, and they just are going to go do what they're going to do, try to survive and get through, to the next day. I don't know if there's any truth to that. I'd be curious to hear from somebody who has some military experience. And I don't know if even military experience is enough on that. You almost have to have some combat experience, I would think. As training, kind of like to your point, Justin, training is only going to take you so far. Definitely something I would be curious about. But I see the Army differently. And if you look at the epigraph, it is a lot of young recruits. And so they hear these stories about fighting, but now they're on that doorstep. They're about to fight. And it's going to be way different than what you thought, especially if you're untested for the majority of them, right? And so they are scared, I would imagine. They are scared to die. They're going to be scared of, what if I lose a leg, an arm, I get maimed, whatever. And can you blame them for being scared? Because it's a pretty, fair thing to be afraid of. And then on top of all that, you have this untested commander who is leading you and hasn't been through any of this either. And so how do you put your faith and trust into somebody like that? And now I know, Tavor, she's got Strings, she's got these other commanders who do have the required experience, but ultimately they still answer to her. She's going to rely on them, but she's going to be the one making decisions. But I do think in the near future, Tavor is going to get smoked. In probably their first battle, she's going to have terrible losses. And it's going to be a big learning moment for her, I think. how could you not learn from that? I'm hoping she'll regroup from it. I don't really know what's going to happen, but I don't see how that doesn't happen when you're going up against Shaik, Corbolo Dom, all these guys who already dealt with Coltane. I just don't see her, these raw recruits, standing much of a chance in the first fight.
Yeah.
Derek, would you like to make a beard bet on that?
Well, Jim, I don't know if I like your attitude right now.
Remember that body language comment?
Well, that was a little more forward than body language.
Well, oh, it's funny. So basically, what you're saying is their way of overcoming this omen is like, hey, here's people that have died. Wear their shit around your neck.
Not so much that, it's that I think it's more that you need to show them that this omen isn't something to be afraid of. It's just a thing that happened. Right. It's not something to be scared of so much. And that, like, don't read into it. Just,
it's like, hey, the kid,
go fight.
The kid had a thigh bone, so here's some finger bones. Is that kind of
let's
undermines it?
Let's interpret the omen differently. Maybe it's not as bad as we think. Yeah.
I mean, if you're all wearing the bone, if you all have a piece of bone, then to me that almost feels like it's, and maybe it's not, but like I felt like it was that they're not afraid of dying. Is kind of what I thought.
My interpretation when I've seen this in other books too, because I have no military experience, but it's not that any of them aren't afraid to die anymore. It's just they accept that, well, everybody dies at some point, and I don't get to control when that happens, so I'm just going to go out and do my thing. And right now, under the omen, they're just terrified they're all going to lose. Then that's a problem. So they've got to get past that. Yeah, we're going to die. We all know we're going to die. That's fine. But there's a chance it won't be today. That's what they have to reclaim again, somehow. And the omen's got them screwed.
Definitely has them spooked. So, Jim, if you're wanting me to make a beard bet on this, the only thing I can think is that it's going to be Tavor's commanders that save the day, and probably not so much her. But I still think she will learn from that. Like, I know she's not stupid. She's smart. Like, she's relying on these people to help make these decisions. And
I'm trying to remember how much you know about Tavor at this point.
Really, we don't know a whole lot. No,
we don't really get anything from her until chapter 5.
There are things you don't know about her yet.
Yes.
I mean, you're 100% right that she's a green commander. Yeah, she's new at this. But she was put in charge by who? Who put her in charge?
The Empress.
Yeah. Is the Empress an idiot? The Empress is no idiot. Seasoned, experienced person from way back at the beginning of the Malazan Empire. So I just say, hang on to that then. There's a reason she's been put in charge, even though she doesn't have military experience yet. And it's not to go out there and lose horribly. So there must be a reason.
I thought it had something to do with the nobility, because she gave up the nobility, where she turned them in, or made Empress Lucine aware of their plotting or something like that.
There are, Lucine must have some reason though that she believes Tavor can do this job, not just that she's loyal to Lucine. There must be something. What you know about Empress Lucine to this point should suggest that she believes Tavor can do this.
I don't know that I can buy into the fact that she's going to go out and win decisively every battle that she comes into and win the war. I don't think that just happens.
Well, I mean, remember back to Deadhouse Gates, right? Coltane, military genius, right? The Whirlwind Army, disorganized, right? They've got vast numbers, but they're not strategic, right? Even though they try to be, they're not strategic. Yep. So, as you said, I would equate Coltane and his cleverness and his geniusness in battle is almost relatable to Strings or Fiddler, right? They both have similar types of minds. Fiddler's probably Strings. is probably a little more crazy because he's a sapper. As far as like military IQ, I would put them over Corbolo Dom.
What does it take to win a battle?
You need discipline.
Okay.
I mean, numbers help, but I mean,
They help.
just because you have superior numbers doesn't mean you're going to win the fight.
You need to be able to execute your plan.
You need a plan. You need a plan that's a good plan that will outplan your opponent. You do need to have the discipline to be able to execute it. Those are all things, but it starts with a plan. We saw in the Chain of Dogs, they got all the way across the continent, not because of superior numbers, not because they necessarily could fight better, but because they had a better plan. They had a better planner. That's all relevant to what's going on here.
Derek, I think you should take this bet.
Well, she's obviously like you don't get into any fight and not lose nobody, right? Like she's going to lose people. Maybe it just won't be as bad.
Sure. Everybody's going to lose somebody.
Yeah, I think ultimately, it's going to go her way, but I still think she'll probably lose a significant amount of forces along the way.
Time will tell.
I would agree, Derek. I think that there's going to be a learning curve here. Again, going back to who she's got, her weapons versus the Whirlwind's weapons. I mean, the only one that I would be scared shitless of would be Toblakai. That's it. I
just again, Jim, like you were saying, if she must have a plan, but is the discipline going to be there to execute it? Especially, with these young soldiers and everything.
Yeah, that's fair.
Are they gonna panic when they see the Whirlwind coming at them?
Are there enough veterans around to shepherd and guide these green recruits?
Yeah, I don't know.
Hard to say.
I guess that's our read on and find out moment.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Weird.
I think
weird, but
no. I think that was a pretty good discussion on that section, and that kind of took care of my other comment there. So unless you guys have anything else, I'm probably ready to move on.
Yeah, good.
Make it so.
All right. Gamut added to the adjunct's announcement that they would march in 2 days' time. He thought to himself before anything else could happen. Gamut glanced over at Nil and Nether, who were sitting on a bench against the wall, shivering as the power of the omen left them. Mysteries stalked the world. Gamut had felt those mysteries before, a power that belonged to no god, but existed nonetheless. As unstoppable as nature's laws can be, well, the truth was beneath the bone. In his mind, the Empress would be better served if the 14th disbanded, reassigning the soldiers to other facets of the army, spread out at different locations across the empire. Tavor's next words to those gathered in the chamber spoke directly to Gamut's thoughts. She was saying that they cannot afford for the 14th to be annihilated as soon as they step outside of Erin. The whole subcontinent would be lost if that were to happen. Better to be slaughtered in Raraku. At least Shaik's forces will be greatly reduced in 2 days. In the meantime, though, she wants her fists to get their officers together and inform them that she will visit each company in person starting tonight. She tells them to not let them know which will be the first. She wants them in their barracks. She tells them to keep an eye on those veteran soldiers, as they'll be looking to get drunk. She asks that Baralta contact Orto Citral and to inform Orto to assemble a troop of Red Blades to go around confiscating booze and Durhang, or anything else that numbs the mind. She tells them that they are all dismissed. She asks Gamut to get Tiamber. He does as she asks. Inside his head, he tells her that calling for Tiamber was careless. Uncharacteristically so, as Tiamber has been kept from the sights of anyone but him.
No, you're right. Even though everyone knows about her, it's that kind of secret that's not a secret.
Right, yeah. Beautiful. I didn't really have much because, again, it just seems to be transitioning from one section to the other. We are informed that they're going to march in 2 days' time, as well as that there are going to be surprise inspections. I feel like that's pretty much all you really need to know from this section. But the only comment that I did have, and I know that they bring this up a bit later, but Is it like taboo for women to bed women? I don't think so. I get the kind of the feeling that it's perfectly fine, but Gamut may not be aware of those customs,
I think it
that
has more
culture.
to do with her position. That she's, this is my take. This is not drawing from extra knowledge in future books. Just, I think it's that she is the leader and a woman, inexperienced, and can't be seen to be showing any weakness, such as relying on this other woman she needs to bring into her bed, her counsel, her comfort.
Gotcha.
I think that's the issue.
But how would it look if she had a man instead? It probably wouldn't look any better, really.
I think it would be a similar problem.
Yeah.
It probably is magnified that it's a woman because some people have an issue about it, probably.
I wonder if it wouldn't cause more problems if they're like, oh, maybe the man's really in charge, and she's just the mouth or something,
Mm-hmm.
Whoever he would have been, could have been.
I think you're right.
Sure. That was the only thought that I had that I was curious about. Everything else made sense to me.
All right, we'll keep rocking along then here. In the hallway, Blistig nodded at Beralta and grabbed Gamut's arm, asking him to come with them. Gamut said to let go of his arm. He could follow without their help, and they found an empty room to talk. Blistig told Gamut they could not march in 2 days. Hell, they can't march at all. At the worst, there would be mutiny. At best, endless desertions. The 14th was done. Gamut was irritated and asked if the child's arrival was a setup between them and Keneb. Blistig was shocked at the question. Blistig was about to draw his sword, but Beralta stepped between them, saying they were here to find a solution, not kill each other. Besides, the same question had occurred to him. Blistig said Keneb wouldn't do such a thing, even if they think he would. Gamut turned and said Tavor has asked for 2 days. Blistig said he heard an order. Gamut said he had not listened well enough. Tavor is young and untested, but not a fool. She sees what they all see, and when the time comes to march, a decision will be made. Trust her. Beralta and Blistig agreed. On their way out, Beralta asked what the situation was with the adjunct and this to Amber. Why was the adjunct being so cagey? When women take another woman as a lover, men are the losers. Gamut said Tavor was not being cagey. She was only a private person. Beralta was persistent and asked what to Amber was like. Did she influence the adjunct? Gamut said he didn't know how to answer the question. She was a concubine from the Grand Temple of the Queen of Dreams, and that she was not very talkative. Speaking of to Amber, he now needed to leave. On his way out, Gamut looked to Blistig, saying he gave a good answer, and he no longer suspects him. All right. There's another short one there.
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And gave some nice clarification on the to Amber question.
I don't know why hearing it spoken out loud made it, and probably the addition of your explanation prior to. So makes sense now. I had a thought here, and I can imagine that Gamut's like first suspicion, right? Not necessarily like who done it, right? But like, oh, the purpose of this child hopefully stalling this march. I can imagine why he is suspicious, because it's like, oh, this is convenient time.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
And Blistig kind of shows his colors here. He's more of a glass half empty kind of person.
Oh, for sure.
We can't go in 2 days. There's no way. Come on, have some optimism. Nah, it's not Blistig.
Yeah. He wants to be able to lick his wounds, and I get it. He saw some very traumatic shit, but still, there's shit to get done.
Mm-hmm.
There's no time to grieve.
Yeah, you're right.
We don't have time to bleed. Sorry. That's a call out.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood but me. The only thought I had to add here, just, Blistig saying he doesn't suspect him anymore because he gave a good answer. It just must be about Keneb not setting up the omen, kind of like you were just talking about. So,
yeah.
That's all I got here.
Sweet. Well, here's my favorite section. I love this. I probably I would imagine that after I'm done reading, we'll probably have a good 45-minute to an hour conversation just on this section alone. I'm not going to take any bets, but that's just where I'm thinking we may head. But Lestara placed her red blade stuff inside of a chest and locked it. She felt sad to put it away, as being a red blade had given her comfort over the years. The red blades were hated by their kin, and in return, she hated them. She was born female instead of the desired son to a Pardue family in Erleton. She was raised by her family on the streets. Before the Malazans came with their law and order, it had been customary for many tribes to cast out their unwanted children when they reached the age of 5. Acolytes from temples, followers of mysterious cults would round up the abandoned children. No one knew what was done with them. There were few around her that hoped that among the cults they would find salvation. They had heard tales or had themselves seen the occasional nightly routine of hooded figures emerging from the backs of temples to roam around the alleyways and streets with a covered cart, heading to small pools east of the city. Pools that were not so deep that you could see the glimmer of small bones at the bottom. One thing was for certain, and that was the appetites of the temples was insatiable. The children of the streets would do all they could to avoid the hunters and their nets. Halfway through her 7th year, she was dragged down the streets by an acolyte's net. Her screams were ignored as she was dragged to the temple. Uncaring eyes met hers on that journey, eyes that she would never forget. Roshan had proved the least bloodthirsty of all other cults that hunted children. She had found herself among others that had just arrived, tasked with menial chores around the temple grounds. It continued on this way until she was about 9, when for an unknown reason she was chosen to learn how to shadow dance. She had caught glimpses of these dancers, a hidden, secreted group of men and women whom worship was an elaborate dance. They wouldn't watch the actual dancers, but the shadows of those dancers. She was told that she is nothing, not a dancer. Her body was in service to Roshan, and Roshan's is this realm's manifestation of shadow, the drawing of darkness to light. When she dances, it is not her that is watched, but her shadow. Years of training that would allow her to flow with seamless movement was for naught. Unbeknownst to Lestara, the world outside those temple walls was changing. The Malazan Empire had invaded the cities, and the cities were falling. Roshan was spared by the hard masters of 7 cities, as it was recognized as a religion. Other temples did not fare so well. Lestara was an average caster, but her shadow seemed to have a mind of its own. Roshan's empty throne did not draw her faith like it did the other students. She lived, and she didn't question it. The only measurement of time was the mastering of the skills forced upon her. Roshan's destruction came out of nowhere, and it came from within. She remembered when it all went down, remembered when a high priest was visiting from another city, came to speak with High Priest Didithal on matters of extreme importance. There would be a dance in the stranger's honor, a dance which Lestara had some other students would partake in. She wasn't the best in that group, but she remembered that stranger and his effeminate hands, the sight of which sparked new emotions within her, so much so that she began to dance strangely, too strikingly to not be noticed. Bidithal was upset and began to rise before the stranger said to let this dance continue, making eye contact with Lestara. The stranger said that these dancers were virgins, but the dance itself wasn't virginal. Those eyes held still and recognized the desire that overwhelmed her, that gave shape to her shadow's wild movements. The stranger seemed pleased but nonchalant in his acknowledgement, as if flattered but did not offer an invitation. Her face burned with shame, and she left the chamber. Later, she would learn that Dalat wasn't here for her. He had other tasks that night, and the nights that followed, he had come to destroy Roshan. Dalat was a high priest and a bridge burner, and the Emperor had decided that the Rashan cult had to go. Whatever the reason was, Dalat was the person that was going to deliver that blow. Although not alone, the night of the killings, there was an assassin. Lestara knew more of what happened that night in the Rashan Temple of Erliton more than anyone else, as she had been the only one spared. She had believed this until the name Bidithal rose once more from Shaik's army. She tells herself that she was more than spared that night, and her thoughts travel to Dalat's long-fingered hands. Naughty, naughty. After 7 years of absence, stepping onto the street the morning after felt strange. She was met with the terrible realization that she was alone, making her remember how she felt being taken away when she was 5. A memory that echoed with the cries of a child for her mother. Shortly after leaving the temple, she joined the Red Blades. Memories of those impassive eyes, citizens who were indifferent to her pleas. Betrayal from her own people could only be answered with one thing. Lestara Yill had grown skilled in that answer. She wonders to herself if now she's a betrayer. She turned away from the wooden chest. She was a Red Blade no longer. In a short while, Pearl would be arriving, and they would go out seeking Tavor's sister's cold trail. Along the way, they may just happen to drive a blade into the heart of the Talons. The Talons were once of the Empire, so what made them traitors? Betrayal was a mystery, but Lestara knew that it delivered the deepest wounds. She had long vowed to never suffer those types of wounds again. She collected her sword belt and then froze. The room in front of her was dancing with shadows. In their midst was a figure. The figure made a slight bow and told Lestara that she may believe it or not, but he remembers her. She stepped back, her back pressing up against the wall, as she said that she did not know him. He said that this was true, as there were 3 of them that night to witness her very unexpected dance performance. He tells her that Dalat would have made her his that night, and she would have joined him as a bridge burner. Lestara said that she remembered. The figure shrugged and continued on to say that Dalat, who had been using a different name, was his partner's responsibility at that time. Dalat let Bidithal go, which could be seen as a betrayal by his partner. To this day, Shadowthrone strokes fires of vengeance. Dalat continues to hide under their noses, along with that assassin Kalam. Lestara stated that she didn't know who he was. He tells her to forgive him as he's gotten a little bit ahead of himself. He introduces himself as Cotillion. Back then, he was Dancer. And yes, she could guess at the significance of that name, given that she had been trained to do. He explains that dancing was never meant for performance. It was meant for the art of assassination. Lestara said that she wasn't a follower of Rashan or his version. He interrupted and said that this wasn't the loyalty he would call upon her. She was silent for a moment and then put it together that Kellanved is Shadowthrone. She tells him that she is loyal to the Malazan Empire. Cotillion responded that this was good. Lestara guessed that he would want help with removing Lucine from the throne. The rope said that this wasn't actually the case, as Lucine was welcome to the throne, and on top of it, it appears that she might actually need some help. She hissed that Lucine betrayed them and had him and Shadowthrone killed. Cotillion shrugs and said that the game being played here is far bigger than any mortal empire. The empire in question, though, Lucine's empire, or Lestara's empire, its success is crucial to what they seek. If Lestara was aware of the fullest extent of a recent but distant events, Lestara would know that the Empress sits on a tottering throne. Lestara points out that even Cotillion has just admitted that he has betrayed Shadowthrone. Cotillion simply shrugs and explains that he has better foresight than his partner. While his partner has desires to see Lucine suffer, he, on the other hand, has other ideas. Even though they play to Amanus's interests, there is no reason to let him know about that fact. Cotillion admits to making grave errors, to knowing the poison of suspicion. Quick Ben, Kalam, Whiskey Jack, where did their loyalty truly reside? He admits that he finally got his answer. but was unsure if it pleased him or not. He explains that there is one thing that threatens ascendance, and that is waiting too long. So therefore, that is why he is here, to ask for Lestara's help. She scowled and asked if she should let Pearl in on this meeting. Cotillion said it wouldn't matter, but in the meantime, to keep Pearl in the dark. And if he does what she's asked of, then Pearl and her will walk step by step without a single drop of confrontation or danger in their travels. She asks, where is Delat? He raised his eyebrows as if caught off guard by this question. He admits that Delat was too smart, and they focused their attention elsewhere. He admitted that he would love to arrange a meeting, but doesn't have that kind of power. After some hesitation, he adds that she simply must trust in fate, as the future can only promise one thing, and one thing only: surprises. He tells her that they would all be saving the Malazan Empire in their own way, and asked officially if she would help. She asked if she did, if that would make her a Talon. Cotillion smiles and said that they no longer exist. She calls him out on his bluff. His smile fades and reiterates that the Talons no longer exist, as Surly eliminated them. He asks if there is knowledge he possesses that would speak otherwise to this. She was silent and then said no, and that she only had assumed. Cotillion agreed and asked once again if she would help him. Lestara said that Pearl was on his way. The rope said that he could be brief, and Lestara asked what he wanted her to do.
There was a little bit to that.
Yeah. It's one of those phenomenons where like so many things from other books just get brought right back in. So I guess I'll just start off this mammoth of a section with these mammoth comments. So when she's talking about the Red Blades were hated by their kin, it says people of the seven cities. That was just there as a little reminder for me. But before the Malazans came with their law and order, it had been customary for many tribes to cast out their unwanted children when they reached the age of 5.
It's a crap move, man, but all right.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with it was because she was desired as a son, and being that she was female, that's the reason why she was cast out. But however, is there anything that is strikingly similar to you about this? Either or. Jim, you may probably know where I'm going with this, so maybe this is more catered for Derek.
I'm trying to read your comment, but go ahead.
No, you can read it if that helps.
I wouldn't have thought of this, so go ahead. So
it reminded me of the Teblor, Delim, Baroth, and Karza, how their children were sacrificed, or their siblings were sacrificed to the faces in the rock. And from what I understand, it happens at a very young age. It was very similar to the Teblor giving up or sacrificing their kin. And I also kind of feel like this helps prove my theory about the 7 faces in the rock. Maybe it doesn't. If the 7 faces in the rock were maybe inspired by it or something.
I think another thing this reinforces is the close to subsistence level of living of many of the people in this world, this Malazan world. You know, you can only manage so many children. Okay, if it's not the right one, you get rid of it by the time it reaches 5. You know, that's it. We're done. It's on its own now. And I think they wait that long because theoretically the child might survive somehow, become a street urchin, you know, make its way. Before that, still needs its mother, still needs care, but, you know, by age 5, it can take care of itself.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal to think about. I couldn't imagine doing that to like any kid, just tossing it to the gutter.
Right.
But see, we live in a different culture. We don't.
That's true.
For most of us, we don't struggle on how do we feed our kids. You know, we can manage. We have a society that actually helps if necessary. You know, well, used to. Okay, I didn't go there. Never mind.
Yeah. No worries.
Yeah. So, you know, I was picturing, you know, she's a girl They have to find someone to take her off their hands, marry her away. Oh, that's a lot of work. Now, we want a boy, because the boy will be a provider. It reminded me honestly of China, when they had their birth limits
Yeah.
and they were getting rid of baby girls because nope, we need a boy. The girl doesn't help but the family. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Well, and in the Malazan case here, it's just it makes you sad because one, they're abandoned by their families, and also like for them to hope to be kidnapped, kidnappers would be their salvation. Some people or some of these children believing that was the only thing to hope for is like, hey, I need to get kidnapped so that like maybe that'll be my salvation because I've heard this, that, or the other thing,
yeah.
I didn't think that was. I mean, yeah, some of them it worked out okay if they got kidnapped, but I mean, I don't. Did you like?
You caught what you were supposed to catch, Derek. You caught it.
Yeah, some of these kids are getting crab bait.
Yep.
Yep.
Some of them are being grabbed by predators. Some of them are being consumed. I mean, there's all sorts of dark things happening to these kids. Some of them get brought in and taught to dance. That's the
Yeah,
lucky
one out
ones.
of 10, 20, however many. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was brutal for sure. I just tried to stick to Lestara's.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Lestara's journey here, and not really other
The
children.
whole picture. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now and then I can't help lean, Malazan is an epic dark fantasy. Sometimes the
Yes.
dark kind of calls. Anyways.
No, I totally agree. And again, as I'm summarizing it, right? And like this is kind of like my first journey into like really peeling back the layers of the section. And this part where she's like uncaring eyes met hers on her journey, eyes that she would never forget as she is screaming, pleading, right? She's in the acolyte's net. And I was just like, okay, so this is the reason why she's a Red Blade, as it calls back to at the beginning of the section when she's putting away her Red Blade gear, that her hatred for her own kin. And, it's described and explained a little bit better later in the section, but I was actually quite proud of myself when I got to that point. I'm like, yeah, I was fucking right. Like, that is exactly the moment where she would be a future Red Blade. Like, that is the motivation to, yes, I want to join that because I fucking hate you.
Mm-hmm.
One thing about like the whole shadow dancing thing, for whatever reason, I did not even think that this was like a possibility in this world. Never would have seen this coming, but it does kind of make a little sense why Bidithal was talking to his shadow when Haboric paid him a visit a few chapters ago. It just kind of like one kind of helped clarify a scene. Not that like that scene really needed any clarifying, but like it did anyway. But also like I never would have like imagined like dancing to be a thing, It's such a dark, gritty world.
But I mean, we find out it's not really just for dancing. It's
right.
The stabby.
Stabby.
And yep,
we'll talk about that.
It is a dark thing. Look at that.
Yeah. But we'll talk about that. This thought where she's just like, she lived on, she didn't question it. And the only measurement of time for her was the mastering of skills forced upon her. And I was just like, how could Erickson do this to us? Like, on surface level, it's just words that may or may not incite any reaction. But when you read them, take into account the sentence before, the hammering blow of the sentence or words after, and you just feel heavy in the chest. This is one of those lines. I just imagine like, you're just in a normal day, going about your business, you're zoning out because you're just not wanting to do your business. And the only measurement of any type of time is just how you go about your business. Like she's doing this day after day. Zoning out is what, 30, 45 seconds?
Depends, I guess. But
right.
Yeah.
So like that's just the mentality that like I'm imagining Lestara is in is just this like perpetual zoning out.
Maybe she wants some Durhang that would help pass the time.
Not nice. Not nice. Okay, so this next part I thought was really fucking cool. She's dancing for Delat, Cotillion, and Bidithal, right? And it's just this connection between her and Delat, right? Like obviously she's smitten, right? She found this man very attractive and started to have some sexual feelings or urges or for Delat and began to dance with more provocative and suggestive gestures, thus causing Delat to notice. But it's just like, if you just are reading this, you are not getting any of that unless you like slow the fuck down. And again, I never would have picked that up had I had just in like my first read through, because like I was so sleepy when I was reading this the first time. And
I did miss this the first time as well. Totally.
Oh.
Yep.
So now you're reacting as if it's the first time reading it again?
I'm like, oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm putting connections together and going, oh, dang.
Yeah. So it was really cool because like I almost kind of think of it like the way it was in my mind when I read this, when I like really understood what was happening, is kind of like, at school dances where everyone is like dancing close, and they're like dancing like really smooth. But then you got
wait. In my school dances, the guys were all on that side and the girls were on that side, and nobody touched because they were all awkward.
Not me. No, I'm going over the women's side.
You were doing the dirty dancing. Oh, I get you. All right.
I was Lestara rubbing my shit on everything. But just like the couple over there grinding with each other, like that's what I imagined, is like all these other dancers with the star are like sweet and innocent, virginal, right? And then Lostar is up here like dry humping shit and just smacking that ass,
I hope all of your dancing moves
seemed pleased, but nonchalant.
Right. This is the reason to join our Patreon, is to see my fucking antics.
I hope all that makes the clip that Patreon generates when you put an episode out.
What do you mean? Oh, no, I think it only clips like the first 15 seconds or whatever.
Oh, gotcha.
Surely,
but I mean, maybe I can change it. Maybe I can adjust.
We need some grinding.
We can make our own clip, bump and grind.
Oh, goodness.
I would need a lot more alcohol for that, Justin, with you.
D&J's Unplugged Epic Quest.
We do have a D&J's After Dark.
Oh, there it is.
So, but we've only got one episode on that one.
Clearly, you're aching for more.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what it is.
There was a lot of alcohol involved then.
It could have been.
I think that is when you showed us HC and I that video of like words or whatever. And and her and I were just like, the fuck, Derek.
I was definitely
laughing your tits off.
Pointless profanity was the
video.
There
it is, yes.
Yeah, there was alcohol in me on that day. I was reading this and I was just hoping that Lestar was old enough where it wasn't like Quick Ben being a creep.
No, I'm pretty sure Quick Ben was being a creep.
But he restrained himself because he was directed. By the way, I did not catch this was Quick Ben the first time I read this. That's where coming back to it, I'm like, holy crap, that was Quick Ben. Oh, that was in that time of Quick Ben. I'm putting connections together.
But they were together because her thoughts traveled to Delat's long-fingered hands.
Yeah, but they weren't together. He did not offer an invitation. She dreamed of those long hands.
It says she tells herself that she was more than spared that night.
Because it was right away that night. Bam. There was no time to consummate something more.
Interesting. Okay. Well, then, I guess never mind. I guess I interpreted that she told herself that she was more than spared that night. And then her thoughts travel to his long fingered hands. So I thought, there was some, double clicking mouses.
Maybe partly I don't want to think of Quick Ben that way. That alters my perspective of him.
Yeah, we don't need any more pervs. We got Diddythal here, and I don't know what we come up with. Who is yeah. I don't want to think of Quick Ben that way.
Fair enough. Well, then I won't touch on that.
Good choice of words, Justin.
I won't touch on that. I was also thinking the poor guy, his nickname is Quick Ben. Usually that's not a good thing for a nickname.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, we'll move on to the next thought that I had. They're talking about how the Emperor, Kellanved, had decided that the Rashan cult had to go. Whatever the reason was, Dalat was the person that was going to deliver that blow. And I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, whoa. Slow the fuck down. That's fishy. It's fishy to me. And it almost feels like his assassination was maybe premeditated, as it seems like he's taking out a challenger of the fragmented Warren in anticipation of taking it over. That's what this feels like, is that he's preparing his new home because he knows Lucene is going to assassinate him, or he's potentially in on the assassination.
I'm not sure where you got there. I want to follow you, but I'm struggling. What?
So, it's explained from Lostar's point of view that Kellanved, when he was emperor, had made the decision that the Rashan cult, which is the sister Warren of Minas, and to me, you've got the Shadow Warren, and then you've got it broken apart into many different fragments, right? And Minas and Rashan are different fragments, but like maybe on the same level or something like that. I'm not exactly quite sure. But it sounds like there is contention there based on previous chapter with Bidithal and Haboric, their conversation. There's some contention for Kellanved from Bidithal's perspective.
Okay. That's the part where I didn't follow you, seeing Rashan, Minas, Shadow connected. I didn't see it that way. You could be right.
Gotcha. So I found it fishy. I found it like awfully suspicious, because it's like you haven't been killed yet, but you're already looking to take out a cult that could have influence on where you would end up.
He's a big picture kind of guy.
Maybe. I mean, it's possible that like maybe he just doesn't like the cult, right? It could very well be something as small as that, but I find it a little fishy knowing where he ends up. That's all.
Fair.
Whether it's true or not, I don't think so. Skipping the finger part. All right. She wonders to herself if she's a betrayer.
Sorry, skipping the finger part.
I already talked about it. It's already been clarified. I loved the flashback that we got here with the whole dancing. It was nicely capped off. Wondering if she was now a betrayer, like being a red blade no more. Is she equating giving up being a red blade to being an impassive eye because she's no longer feeding her vengeance? Quick Ben and his magic fingers. I will never think of.
Sorry, I just can't let go of this.
His long, effeminate magic fingers.
For the spells, the magic, yes. It's all in the wrist.
Oh man, that's good shit. But yeah, I don't know. It was just I feel a little bad for Lostar, right? Because her only she was so proud to be a Red Blade.
Red Blades was her salvation, a new family.
Yeah. Right. And now she's giving it up, and it's just like, oh well, now am I a betrayer because I'm giving it up? Am I just going to impassively make eyes at wrongdoing?
Mm-hmm.
So again, when Cotillion is kind of talking and saying that Delot had been using a different name and that it was his partner's responsibility at the time, referring to a Manus's responsibility, accentuates their interaction at the ends of Gardens of the Moon a little bit for me. Because I remember it being contentious. I remember it kind of being conflict oriented, as Amanus didn't remember who he was dealing with until after Quick Ben had left, because Quick Ben had revealed his real name, which was Delot. And this is why Amanus sees it as betrayal. Shadow Throne was betrayed by Quick Ben because Quick Ben did not kill. So Bidethal has something to do with potentially getting into Kellenved's way. So maybe it was he wanted Rashawn and Minas, but because Quick Ben didn't take out Bidethal, he couldn't do so.
I think the world would have been a better place without Bidethal.
I agree. Yeah,
I would definitely agree as well.
Really agree. Oh my goodness. It's only going to get worse.
Those are the things that are just slapping me in the face. It's just all of these little interesting little details. So
just like Quick Ben's fingers.
Right. Yes. Slapping me upside my head.
It seems Shadow Throne holds a grudge.
Yeah. As well as it seems like Bidethal does as well towards Shadow Throne. There's something there. I don't know what exactly it is, but there's some putting some pins in there. So here's my question about the dancing, though, as it's revealed and we kind of touched on, is that it's the art of assassination. So is this marking a target for assassination? Because it kind of sounds like the practitioners of Rashawn had forgotten what the dancing was actually meant for. But if they had forgotten it and were performing it, are they marking the people that are watching? Or what exactly is happening here? When one dances,
I think the dancing ties to the fluid movements of an assassin. Yeah, and this comes up in other fantasy series too. So this is where I'm drawing from a little bit, but that the ability to flow from strike to strike as opposed to from dance to dance, it all flows.
Gotcha.
Does that hit for you guys at all? I mean, again, I'm not drawing on future knowledge there. That's just how I take that.
I mean, that makes sense to me. But I guess the sense that I had gotten was that it made me think that it's a way of marking someone for assassination, and for whatever reason, it just that existed. I need you to die. So I'm just going to dance in front of you. And people who have the ability to call upon this Warren are somehow watching the target through the shadow of the dance.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
I interpreted it a different way. What she was trained to do, what she was given here, this training, you do it through dancing, but it's to train you to use the skills as an assassin. That's really what the purpose is for. The dancing is the prototype. That's the practice. When you truly apply what you've learned, you're killing people. That's what I saw it as.
You could use the dance as a way to seduce somebody, put them in a trance, Justin, and then those dance moves you strike, maybe.
Do you grind and
Nice.
I mean, I guess you could. You could.
Oh god, this is gonna be a great episode. Oh.
I'm picturing the soundtrack. Boom, chicka, boom, chicka.
Well, I think the second to last thing that I have here is this call out to Cotillion saying that his partner has desires to see Lucine suffer. He, on the other hand, has other ideas. And this just, for whatever reason, was just a gotcha. I see you. I understand now why it seems like, to me, you're doing several things at once. To me, there are other things in motion here. Which kind of brings me into my last section here, or my last thought, is it possible that he's having Lestara and Kalam kind of go on similar paths, and then maybe Kalam will lead Lestara to Quick Ben? because he does kind of insinuate that, like, there's only one thing the future can promise you, and that's surprises. It's like almost a little too convenient, like, oh, I really wish that I could, like, reconnect you two, but, future's full of surprises. Shit like that, right?
That's great.
Not that, like, Cotillions that dumb when he talks, but...
Well, my friends, I have to bow out. I am sorry that I cannot stick around to the end here, because it's such a great chapter.
Well, thanks for sticking around with us for this long. Sorry we didn't... I always suck at this, but I forgot to do it at the beginning again. Before you go, you better tell everybody who you are and where you're at.
I'm Jim with Fantasy for the Ages. I'm the father of a father-son show. You can find us on YouTube, as well as all the audio podcast things we talk about: fantasy, science fiction, horror, and whatever nerdy things we feel like talking about. And yeah, come check us out. We do book reviews. We make top 10 lists. We talk about wherever things take us. My episode I dropped today was a review of Forge of Darkness, Carcanus Trilogy, Book 1. And if you're only as far as this is saying in Malazan, don't go watch that yet. You gotta wait.
Maybe you should have an episode on dancing. And
I don't have a dancing yet.
And so
you definitely need to include grinding and long fingers, apparently.
Yeah.
The best fantasy dances, I guess. There you go.
There you go.
But thanks for having me on, guys. It's always fun to hang with y'all and talk Malazan, for sure.
Well, it's good to see you again, Jim. So thank you for coming again.
My pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
And I guess I'll need to be practicing my epilogues. Epigraphs. There you go.
Awesome.
All right. Take care.
Bye, Jim.
See ya. Well, bummer. I'm glad he made it for a while, though.
Yeah, me too. I don't think that's ever happened before. Our guest is dipped out. Understandable. Makes sense. No worries.
Yeah.
Shit happens.
Well, I'm sure he would like to stay, but, he's 2 hours behind us, so.
Fair enough. I'm ready for your popcorn of a section.
There was a light knock on the door, and Pearl entered and immediately said he smelled sorcery. Lestara shrugged, grabbing her belongings, and said, "There are parts in the shadow dance that at times evoke Rashan." Pearl said, "Rashan." Looking at her, he was surprised she did the shadow dance. Lestara said, "Once, long ago, but she keeps no gods and never has. The dance, however, she has found serves her in fighting, as it keeps her flexible, and she needs that most when she is nervous or unhappy." Lestara said that she had heard he had picked up a lead. Pearl cut her off and said he had found a lead, but in the future she should avoid using Rashan as it would draw unwanted attention. Lestara said to lead on. I guess it kind of leads into what Jim was saying, like the dance is kind of it's a dance within the dance, right? Like, yes,
yeah.
you're dancing, but it's purposeful, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. What you said about...
Gotta get a good stretch.
There you go.
I don't have anything else here. You can take a shorter section here if you decide you want to. A little shorter for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any. The Star one was the longest I had. The other ones were fairly short.
That was probably the longest one.
Yeah. So we both got a long one, and then the rest of them are fairly short.
Yep.
But yeah, it's the section 9 here. A lone guard slouched outside the estate's gates. He watched as Lestara and Pearl approached from across the street. A small human finger bone was dangling from his hoop earring. The guard asked if they were the messengers, and if they were, they weren't ready yet. Lestara looked at Pearl, who told the guard that they were not messengers. The guard's eyes thinned and said that he thought he saw Pearl dancing on some tables down at Pugroot's bar. Pearl smiled and asked for the guard's name. The guard responded and said it was Maybe. Maybe said if they weren't the adjunct's advance notice about the inspection, then what was it they wanted? Pearl is like, hold on a minute, and asked the man how an inspection can be a surprise if there's an advanced warning. The man said that this was how it was done. Pearl winked at Lestara and then bantered with the guard a bit more. The guard then asked what it was that they wanted. Pearl responded that they were here to speak to a certain soldier, After some dumbassery on the soldier's part, he finally lets them in but says to be quick about it. As Pearl and Lestara entered, the pile of hay next to Maybe suddenly started to move as an overweight young man appeared. Maybe's head turned and told Balgrid to not do that, as magic made him sick. Balgrid admits that he had no choice to maintain the illusion, as he was sure that the man was a claw. Maybe said maybe, and that he's positive he saw that man dressed in woman's clothing and dancing at the. He's interrupted and told to shut up about that. The man says that he pities the poor bastard those two were looking for. Maybe congratulates the man for deceiving a claw with that illusion. Balgrid admits that Maybe isn't the only one feeling sick. So I know that we have already touched on the finger bone. Wait, this is their way of dealing with the omen or combating it, as you so eloquently said.
I don't know if that's that eloquent, but thank you.
Pearl smiling when Maybe is like, hey, didn't I see you dancing in girls' clothing down at this bar? And I feel like him smiling is kind of an acknowledgement of that.
The only other thing I could think of as a possibility is that he knew that the bale of hay wasn't a bale of hay. I think yours probably makes more sense. That would be the only other maybe possible explanation.
So Pearl thinks that, Pearl knows that the bale of hay is not the bale of hay.
Yeah, he knows it's a person like in disguise.
Right.
I don't know. That's the only other like possible thing I could think that he would like smile at.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Maybe. Hard to say. It was a witty section. I think there was a part in where Maybe is like, oh, yeah, because Pearl's like, yeah, we're here to see somebody from the 4th or the 6th or whatever. And he's just like, well, I'm from the 5th or the 6th, so like, you didn't find me, or whatever the case was. Yeah. It was really stupid and like, not stupid like bad, but like character stupid. You couldn't help but chuckle at a little bit. So I like some of those like dumb, witty moments. I don't know if those really worked well together, but it is what it is.
I had zero questions on your choice of words.
Fair enough. But yeah, that's all I had. Again, transitional. Lestara and Pearl are looking to talk to some people and have a conversation along the way.
Well, this will be my long section here. Well, we'll get some of that conversation then. Pearl said that was all amusing. When Lestara asked what the point was, he said he wanted to see them sweat. Lestara was confused, and Pearl said the bale of hay was also a man. As they were about to enter a building, Pearl told Lestara they were actually a couple of veterans they needed to question, so leave that to him, while he would leave the boy from the mining camp to her. Work her magic on him. Pearl said if she left him smitten with her, it was like a gift for the future if they needed to make use of the lad. In the stables, it smelled like horse piss and sweat. Soldiers were laying all over and directed their attention to Pearl, who thanked them. He said he was looking for Sergeant Gessler and Corporal Stormy. Gessler announced himself and pointed out to Stormy, sleeping and snoring. Gessler said if they came from Oblat to tell him they would pay up eventually. Pearl said he would like to talk privately about their recent adventures. Gessler asked who the hell he was. Pearl said this was an imperial matter and who was waking up Stormy. Also, he needed to talk to Pella. Gessler said to be his guest and wake up Stormy. As for Pella, he wasn't here now. Pearl ripped the blankets off Stormy, and instantly Stormy grabbed his calf. Stormy lifted him by the leg into the air and tossed him. Pearl crashed and slowly recovered himself. Stormy yelled that no one was to wake him. Stormy saw Pearl getting onto his hands and knees, shoulders, knees, hands, toes. I butchered that. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Oh, I'm glad you're laughing. Let's see, where was I? Stormy saw Pearl getting onto his hands and knees, strode over, and asked if he was the bastard that woke him. Lestara put herself between them. Gessler said to leave them alone. He had just chucked a claw, and the woman in his way is a red blade. or was. No reason to fight over sleep. Lestara, with a hand on her sword, asked who was the better storyteller. She and her friend wanted to hear a tale, and they would pay for that privilege. Maybe they would pay their debt to this oblat. Gessler said they would both tell the story. Where should they start? He was born in... Lestara cut in, saying that much history wasn't necessary. Maybe they could get a drink for Pearl to help him recover. And where was Pella? They told Lestara that he was out back. Another sergeant said he would escort her. Lestara didn't think that she would get lost on her way. He said she could possibly, and asked if she was with another legion or recently assigned as the Claw's new handmaid. She said yes, and the man needs learning, and that at least he chose well. Lestara asked what he wanted. He said to forget about it, and he would leave her alone. She saw a boy drilling holes into finger bones. She called out to Pella. He asked if he knew her. Lestara said no, but they may have a common acquaintance. She said he was a guard in the mines. He said not quite. He was garrisoned at Skullcap. The rebellion started. 15 of them survived the first night. They managed to escape and got on a ship to Erin. Lestara said there was a young girl there. Pella knew she meant Felison. He wondered when someone would catch up to him about that. Was he under arrest? She asked why he thought he should be arrested. Pella said he helped them escape. Pella didn't know if they made it or not, but he did leave them supplies. They were planning on heading north and west across the desert. He didn't think he was the only one helping them, but he never knew who the others were. Lestara asked who else was with Felison. Pella said Bowden, and he was a scary bastard, but loyal to Felison for some reason. Also, Hebrick was with the two of them. Lestara asked who that was. Pella explained who Hebrick was, and that it was just the three of them. Lestara said the west coast of the island has nothing on it. Pella said they were expecting a boat. It was planned, but that was as much as he knew. He would have to talk to his sergeant, or Stormy, or Truth. Lestara asked who Truth was. Pella said he was behind her, here to deliver more bones. She told Truth that she wanted to know about Felison. She wanted to know about what happened on the western side of the island. Did the rendezvous go as planned? Truth said he thought so, but he wasn't sure as they were not a part of the plan. They just happened to end up on the same boat as Culp. Lestara knew he was the cadre mage from the 7th. Truth said Duiker had sent him. Lestara wanted to know why the Imperial historian wanted to help save Felison. Truth said it wasn't Felison Duiker wanted to help. It was Heberick. Pella said if Heberick was going to be made out as a traitor, well, she had better think twice. This is Erin, after all, the city that watched. They saw them deliver the refugees, and Duiker was the last one through the door. Pormqual had him arrested. Lestara knew. Blistig let them out of jail. They were on the wall by the time Pormqual had his army on the plain. She didn't care if Duiker wanted to free Heberick. They were on Felison's trail. Truth picked up on what was happening and asked if Tavor had sent them. Lestara said she was not as subtle as Pearl. The mission was supposed to be a secret. Truth said it didn't really matter. They were all dead. Felison, Heberick, Culp, all dead. Gessler was just telling that part. Lestara said all the same, she didn't want them to tell anyone about this. They would continue, even if it was only to find her bones. Lestara was about to leave, but Pella stopped her, giving her a fingerbone necklace and asked her to wear it in plain sight. She didn't understand why. Pella said they had asked a favor of them, so she agreed. Pearl appeared and asked if she was ready to go. Lestara said she was. Lestara could tell by his face he had been told Felison was dead, and he had probably gotten more details than she had. As they left the stable, Lestara couldn't help but look at the bale of hay that seemed to be wavering. Pearl said he needed a healer. Lestara said his limp was hardly noticeable. He said it took years of practice. The last time he had felt this type of strength was from a Semke demon. And as far as Truth, Stormy, and Gessler, there was more to the three of them than met the eye. Lestara asked if he had any theories. Pearl said they went through the Warren of Fire and somehow survived, while apparently Bowden and Felison didn't. Their fate is unknown, and Gessler just assumes they died. If something happened to the guards, then why not to the others as well? They would need to visit an impounded ship. He would explain on the way. Also, next time don't offer to pay a debt until you know the amount. Lostara asked if he had noticed the weapon under his bed. A two-handed flint sword, the weapon of the Talan Imus. It probably weighs as much as her. Pearl didn't say anything else until they reached the Solanda. It was guarded, but they had permission to board. Lostara looked around the deck. Pearl asked if she recognized the ship. She said she recognized the fact that it was a ship. Pearl explained the ship and asked if Lostara knew anything about Drift Avali. She said it was a mythical island off the coast of Quantali, floating and populated with demons and specters. Pearl said it was real and did, in fact, drift, but it wasn't anything that scary. Lostara looked at the pile of heads. The blood still looked wet. Pearl touched the blood and said it was still warm. Lostara said that was impossible. Pearl asked if it was more impossible than it being conscious or alive. The ship is a lodestone, layered with sorcery. Lostara said she couldn't feel it. Pearl said neither could any of the occupants of the ship. He wanted to check out the captain's cabin as magic was emanating from it in waves. Lostara asked what kind of magic. Pearl named off a few warrens, Rashan being one of them. He was surprised she couldn't feel it. Lostara shrugged it off and asked if there were more heads in there. If so, she would rather not enter. He told her to follow him. Inside, they found the captain pinned to his chair and other broken bodies that looked as if they had been tossed there. On the floor, Lostara saw otadral dust. Pearl said they weren't Teist Andy, they must be Teist Edur. Pearl wondered what had happened on the ship. Lostara wanted to know how this helped them with Felison. Pearl said she was here to witness all of this. Then he said the captain would have had a whistle to direct the rowers, but now it was gone. Lostara said without it, the ship doesn't move. Pearl said that was too bad, as this would be a nifty ship to have since you wouldn't need to feed the crew. Lostara said he could have it. She hates ship, and she was going to get off this one now. Pearl said he would join her, as they have a journey to continue. Lostara wanted to know where they would go next. Pearl said the Solanda had traveled between warrens to where Gessler had found it. From what he figures, it went across the mainland from the North Otadral Sea down Aran Bay. If Felison, Hebrick, and Bowden jumped off, they could be somewhere along that route. Lostara said they would have found themselves in the middle of the rebellion. Pearl argued, given the circumstances, it might have been the better option. Pretty straightforward section. I think I only had a couple thoughts here, but one of them, just so you remember, this isn't anything I jotted down, but Cutter and Apsalar. I had thought maybe they were going to the only thing I could think of at that time was like the Mekros island that we saw in Memory's Ice floating around. But they got to be going to Drift Avali.
Makes sense.
Just to call back to that couple chapters ago.
Have you thought about like why Shadow Throne would send them there?
I haven't really, no. Do you have ideas?
Well, I mean, it seems to be that the Solanda, right? I mean, was operated by Tistidur, which are, I guess, the OGs of the Shadow Warren. My guess is it has something to do with the Tistidur because the drift. Oh, right, because that's where the Solanda was made. Maybe.
Did we learn that? I don't remember that.
Yeah, because remember in like chapter 3, the boards were made out of like a dark wood, which could only be found on Drift Avali or whatever.
Oh, I did not remember that detail. Good call. Or good catch.
My guess is that like maybe there's some like surviving Edur there, and I don't really know. I think you're right. Yeah, for sure. But I always wonder about why.
That's fair. I guess I don't always wonder why, unless it's just more like I'll just keep reading,
right?
And eventually I'll be told something.
I mean, that's fair. It's like a small win, when you put the puzzle piece together before it's actually complete. So I get like a little bit of like satisfaction from that.
Nice. Well, you should.
Yeah.
One of my thoughts here, just Stormy picking up Pearl, just chucking him across the room. Like, just such a funny image.
Yeah, like
just Pearl being so caught off guard.
Yeah, like picking up a chair by its leg, right?
Yeah. I only had one other thought in this long section. Again, like Jim was saying earlier, like it doesn't appear that Erickson like wastes any word. Every word is purposeful. We get this where Pearl said she was here to witness, or Fellison was there to witness all of this. And I just thought that was a fitting word given that Karsa was on that ship.
Right. But Fellowson didn't actually witness any of that.
No, but they don't know that, right?
Right. Yeah. They're assuming she did. Yeah. Kind of like how we did, right?
Yeah. He's giving me those smoldery eyes.
For sure. My only thought on this section, and it makes me nervous, because I did remember all those when we first ran across the Solanda, we were told that there were 3 different like perspectives of the Solanda. I hope this is not the 3rd.
Well, it's only I'm sure we'll come back to it.
I think so too. Like I feel like it would be a disservice knowing that information, and this was the last one. I feel like there's another perspective out there.
Yeah, I don't think we're done with it for sure. So
lovely. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I know, but it was reassuring.
You're welcome. You're welcome for my reassurance.
Yeah. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
Or some combination of those body parts.
It doesn't matter the order. It's not a song.
Just use your long fingers to touch yourself.
Oh.
All right, I'm done.
Onwards. Okay, all right. You're done. Captain Keneb's 9th Company was called up to the parade ground. Squads 1, 2, and 3 went first. These were heavy infantry, Marines, and then lastly, the majority of the army, which was the medium infantry. String stood in front of his squad, the 9th, studying them. It was their first assembly as a separate force. They awaited the arrival of the adjutant in a precise formation. Bernal had been walking up and down the ranks before finally stopping in front of Strings. Bernal asked Strings if it was his idea with the finger bones, as they were worn by his, Strings, squad first. He goes on to explain that it's making its way through every legion, graves being robbed all over the city. He stepped closer to Sergeant Strings and told the man that if he was asked about the finger bones, he would point the adjutant right at Strings' direction. The sergeant calls Renal an idiot and informs him that officers had appeared at the main gate and suggested that Renal join them. Face dark with fury, Renal turned around and took position before the 3 squads. The adjutant led the way with her entourage trailing behind her. Captain Keneb awaited the adjutant. Strings has some speculative thoughts about Keneb taking a coward's route out of some battle. The adjutant and Keneb were speaking. The captain saluted to invite the adjutant to inspect the troops, but instead she reached out and touched the necklace with the finger bone attached to it. More words were shared between the adjutant and Keneb. Then Tavor nodded and headed towards the troops. Strings watched Tavor as she recognized that the troops also had bone finger necklaces. Bernal had been at her side, but she ignored him and she took in the sights of all those omen breakers. Finally, she turned to the bumbling idiot and stated that all these soldiers were wearing non-standard uniforms. Bernal admits that his orders were defied and he could point directly to the man that was responsible. Tavor said that she wasn't interested in that. She was more interested on how to get the other soldiers to match. She also added that the citizens in Erin would like the states of tombs and looted pits returned to their original state, as much as it could be. She also told Renal that he alone was in violation of non-standard of the 14th Army at this time. So she suggested that he go and fix that. For now, though, she gives him permission to dismiss his squads. Strings watched her walk away, and inside his head, he tells Tavor that she did a job well done. I guess the only thing that I'll comment on here is that, like, I love how Tavor is recognizing, like, Strings. Well, maybe not necessarily Strings, but recognizing that somebody has taken on the task of trying to thwart this omen, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's not going to be an easy thing to do.
Right. Well, I just love how like it, you know, she sat there and she like observed all these people with these bones, and like I just get the sense that like maybe at first she maybe wanted to be upset because it was non-standard uniform, but then like really taking in what this is doing, right? The steadiness of the soldiers, so much different than it was at the beginning of the chapter. Um, you know, and the bone necklaces probably not ideal, but taking in the moment to recognize that like this kind of quelches this omen, and like they're a lot more prepared than they were yesterday.
Yeah, it's just I think it's just a big morale booster, right? Like,
Yeah.
are you gonna throw a fit about that? You know, where they fight better, or do you want them to be like scared shitless still? You know, like
Right. I
choose your
just thought that
battle.
was good on her, you know,
Yeah,
even though she probably doesn't give a shit.
no, I mean it's not a big deal. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see it. Like, I don't think it's really that much different than like, you like. I guess I think of like a Vietnam War movies, where you see guys would like draw shit on their helmets.
Yeah. That's
I'm
legit.
sure that I'm sure that wasn't standard, issue.
Right. Yeah.
So, well, should we wrap this chapter up here? Last section.
Yeah. Let's bring it around town.
All right. Gamut's chest ached as he watched the adjunct walk back to where the others waited. Whoever had come up with the idea deserved a hood-damned kiss. They had done it. They had turned the omen. Tavor addressed Gamut, saying that the 14th needed a standard, and that they might take inspiration from the soldiers themselves. Gamut agreed and said he would take care of it. A messenger arrived on horseback. Tavor told the man to report. Gamut hoped it was not bad news. The messenger said there were 3 ships that had just arrived in the bay. Tavor told him to continue. He said it was volunteers, warriors, horses, chaos on the docks. Gamut wanted to know how many. He was told 300. He asked where they were from. It was the Wiccans, the Crow clan, Coltane's own. That's got to be like a morale booster too. You got some guys that are like, you got another 300 veterans who have already gone through this. 300 is not a lot, but I mean, every little bit's going to help. You can maybe spread them out a little bit to help calm the nerves of all these people are going to get their first taste of battle or something, maybe.
But where did the Wiccans go? I don't remember.
I don't really remember either.
Wasn't Coltane the only Wiccan or the only Crow from the Crow clan? Or were there others? Bolt, Coltane. Those are the only 2 that I could remember that were from the Crow clan.
Unless they were off page during Deadhouse Gates and now they're coming to like avenge. I don't know. I guess.
Yeah. Community, you can
Fill us in.
Yeah.
Fill us in.
Excited to see where that goes. I think that definitely kind of adds to your point that you made earlier. Yes, Tavor is inexperienced. Yes, she's got a shit ton of new recruits, but 300 Wiccans, strings, cuddle.
I just wonder, is it going to be enough? I don't know.
I think it will be. I'd be very interested to see what these battles are like. Maybe it's maybe less loss heavy and more stalemate.
I don't know. I still think she's going to have to like lick her wounds at least once. I don't know. Okay, so maybe the first one, they win, and it's the next engagement, she's got some confidence and makes some mistake. I don't know. I can't see how something like that doesn't happen, whether it's the first, second, third, somewhere in the line. I feel like she's got to have that humbling moment.
You make Tavor sound like every sports movie out there. Think about it, right? Like that arc is they're terrible at first and then they get a better player and now they win every fucking game after that. You know what I mean?
I've not thought of it that way, but I see your point.
I mean, like think of the the movie that comes to my mind is The Little Giants, right? Like they suck ass at first, but then they get some good players and they win,
You're making me second guess myself, and I don't like it.
With such an obscure analogy, too. Sorry, man. You were saying that earlier, and I meant to say it when Jim was on, and I just completely forgot about it. But yeah, that's like when you were describing, you were having that very in-depth conversation about Tomorrow with Jim. That it was like my first thought was like, sounds like every damn sports movie I've ever watched.
And you just waited to the end to shit all over me.
Sometimes it rolls to the left, to the right.
Yeah. Oh, another good one there. Yeah. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's still like, again, like, I don't know. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I guess it's just one of those things where we have to see what'll happen. I would imagine it's got to be coming soon, right? I mean, like, I think that Tabor is meaning like, hey, in 2 days we're out. You know?
Yeah. So we're on chapter 9. Well, we'll be going into chapter 9, 411. How long is this chapter?
It's a little under 50 pages, I think.
Oh, so it's a little bit of a longer one.
Yes. I'm excited to get into this.
411 to 457. And then we got how many more chapters of the subbook do we have?
I don't actually know.
Is it just 9 and 10?
Old Iron, 265 to 513.
Oh, okay. So we've got 3 chapters left then, I would guess.
Yeah. 3 or 4.
I'm probably not going to read tonight. I don't know when I'll get to read.
Oh, I didn't even notice this before. The third book subbook is Something Breathes. That's ominous.
I didn't remember. And then House of Chains for book 4.
Yeah.
Well, you gonna read tonight?
I don't know. I'm actually kind of feeling kind of tired. It's been a long day.
All right, man. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Dancing, singing, and debauchery of sorts. So
And fingering.
too much of that.
Yeah. I could have
And
swore. I thought that it made it sound like Delat and Lestara had gotten together, but
We also had bad karaoke tonight.
yeah, this is what we do though.
Well, hopefully everybody enjoys this extra footage.
I'm sure that they will. But patrons, we appreciate you.
Yeah, you guys rule. It's a lot of fun to do this for you guys.
Damien, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Actually, you probably won't see this until after you record with us.
I'll still text you sometime. I'll probably text you tomorrow, anyways, which would be February 7th.
I like how we're like futuristically talking to Damien as if it's in the past.
It's a time loop, man.
Yeah. We're boarding the Solanda.
Don't stab me. All right. Good night, man.
All right. Good night, dude.
See ya.
Bye. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes.
DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest.